Okay, hi everybody. It is Wednesday morning, April 26, 2023, the day before the NFL draft. And what I thought I would do is come in here real quick before I do my podcast podcast with Jen and just do a really quick one round NFL mock draft, what I kind of think every team is going to do. I can't say I know all the teams in depth. Um, but I know the Seahawks, I know the top of the draft, and there are a lot of rumors out there about what's going on. So we shall see what's really going to happen. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do is we're going to use the um, Pro Football Network mock draft simulator. It does have trades. I am going to select all of my teams. We're going to just do one round, and we are going to then draft. So the thing is, that's really interesting here is that we start out with the Carolina Panthers at number one. Now, everybody says that, God damn it, really. Everybody says that Bryce Young is going to be the first overall pick in the draft. I agree with that. I think that's pretty clear. He's a very popular player. He's the quarterback that the Carolina Panthers have apparently focused in on and decided that they're going to use the first overall pick on. Now is where it gets interesting because rumors are that the Texans are not that excited about the other quarterbacks. And although they desperately need a quarterback, they're not going to take one in the first round. There's rumors they're going to trade for Trey Lance from the 49ers. I think that was more viable when the 49ers had a chance of then taking, let's say, the 33rd overall pick in the draft, first pick in the second round, and combining that with a couple of their third round picks and next year's first and going and getting Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but it appears that the Texans are moving away from the number one overall pick, the number two pick being used on a quarterback. So where does that leave us? Well, there are five or six elite players in this draft. Every draft seems to have like five or six top of the line elite players. In this particular case, Bryce Young is one of them. Will Anderson is one of them. The other two that are probably right up there are Devon Witherspoon, is generally regarded as one of the top five or six. Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, is considered one of the elite players. And a guy that's slipping in there now is Paris Johnson Jr., the offensive tackle from Ohio State. So which one of these guys will the Texans go for? Well, in the absence of a quarterback, they got a new head coach, DeMeco Ryans. And the reason they say that these guys are elite, the only elite prospects, is these guys are can't miss. These guys are so good that unless they get hurt, they're going to be dominant players at their position. If they're not going to take a quarterback, and it appears likely that they're not, which is great news for the Seahawks. If you're an intelligent Seahawks fan, if you're an idiot like Seahawks Brandon Nelson and think that Jalen Carter is a good pick at number 5 or anywhere in the first round, then, you're a fucking clown. But I think what the Texans are going to do is they're going to take one of these elite players. They're going to guarantee they get him. A lot of people have Will Anderson number 1 on their board. I personally don't think he's that great a player. I think that you could get. I think there are guys. I don't think he would have gone top 10 last year. Given he might have gone at the tail end of the top 10, but he's a 10 to 20 player in last year's draft with all the edge talent they had there. But he's the top player on a lot of teams' boards, and he's going to go to the Texans at number 2. Now, the really critical part here is that what we've done now is we've guaranteed that one of the 4 top quarterbacks, well, not Bryce Young, but one of the 3 that are left, Will Levis or CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson is going to be there at number 5 for the Seahawks, which is a dream because I guarantee you, as a Seahawks GM, I'm taking a quarterback. I think that they will take one too. Now, the Cardinals could screw this up, but not really because there's 3 quarterbacks left and there's only 3 picks before we pick, so there's no way around it. So what are the Cardinals going to do? They could trade out and try to get more picks. They could trade out and try to get more value. But again, if they do that, they miss out on one of the elite players here. Now, there's a couple of possibilities for them to go with these elite type players. They do need a quarterback because Kyler Murray is not going to cut it, but they've paid him so much money they have to stick with him for a while longer. So I don't see them taking one of the quarterbacks. It's possible they could trade out, but the thing is, if they trade out to, let's say, Tennessee at number 11, who wants one of the quarterbacks, or Atlanta at number 8, who wants one of the quarterbacks, or even Green Bay, who might move up to get one of the quarterbacks, the reality is that they're going to miss out on one of the elite players. So I think they're definitely going to take one of the elite players. Now, as I look at the Cardinals, I think to myself, who's their running back? Anybody know? I don't know who their running back is. James, somebody, some guy used to play for the Steelers who's completely mediocre. So Bijan Robinson could be the pick. At number 3, another guy who could be the pick that they're saying a lot of people don't think Broderick Jones is an elite player, but he's a left tackle, and left tackles are so valuable that somebody might trade up to get him. I don't necessarily think that that's what the Cardinals are going to do here. I think they're going to take the best defensive back in the draft. I think they're going to go in absence of a pass rusher, because the other pass rushers like Tyree Wilson is a reach because of his injury history. So I don't think they're going to go for a pass rusher with a bad foot. I think they go for Devon Witherspoon and take one of the elite players in this draft. They will try to trade it out to some team that wants the left tackle, but the teams that want the left tackle, they're sitting back here happy as a clam, waiting for people to fall to him. Now, the Colts have been linked heavily with Will Levis. I think they go with Will Levis. There are people who think Will Levis could be a legitimate first or second overall pick if both the Panthers and the Texans decide to go for quarterbacks. And the reason for that is because the guy's ready to play right now. He's played in the pro offense. He's looked fantastic. He makes throws other players' quarterbacks simply cannot make. And he goes to the Colts at number 4. Okay, now the Seahawks are on the clock. I am not trading out. I am not accepting any trades. Pete Carroll and John Schneider look for certain traits and certain quarterbacks. And the guy that has the most physical traits they look for is Anthony Richardson. But Anthony Richardson is raw, and he doesn't have a lot of experience at all. He's only started a few games. There's a lot less of a book on him than there is on CJ Stroud. And I think the pick here is going to be a quarterback. I think they've hinted that it's going to be a quarterback. I think that's why they gave Geno Smith the contract they did, which allows them to get out of it after just a year or two. The finished product and the guy, if I had the number 1 overall pick, if I had been the Seahawks, first of all, I would have paid the iron price, and traded up for the number 1 overall pick from the Bears like the Panthers did. I would have paid the price that they paid to move up. And I would have taken CJ Stroud, and I'm taking CJ Stroud again. The thing about Stroud is that you got to love is that, he's 6'3". So I love Bryce Young. I understand the intangibles. People say Bryce Young is a pocket Patrick Mahomes, but he's 5'10". We've been through 10 years of having a 5'10" quarterback. There are issues with 5'10" quarterbacks. It would be great to have a 6'3" quarterback, somebody big like Geno. The thing about Stroud is he's got this incredible physical talent. He's so smooth. He's such a smooth athlete. It's phenomenal. Maybe he can't throw the ball 75 yards downfield quite like Anthony Richardson can, but he's a great deep ball thrower, which is something the Seahawks really need. And you got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf on your roster. And he's played in a ton of big games and played well in big games. And there's people that say, well, Ohio State's system is really simple and he's really limited. The system may have been limited. That doesn't mean CJ Stroud is limited. I mean, there's a lot of film where he gets up to the line of scrimmage and he keeps looking over at the sideline to get signals, not necessarily because he wants to, but because they forced him to. They had a very, very tightly constrained offensive system. So I think that if CJ Stroud is here, he's got to be the pick. I understand the fascination with Anthony Richardson, but CJ Stroud is a finished product. He can wait behind Geno for a year and then take over. And then let me tell you something. If you've got CJ Stroud on a $30 million in guarantees, you've got Geno Smith with a pretty low cap number, you're really strong at quarterback for the next 5 years. So I'm taking CJ Stroud. I'm not even thinking about it. Now we move on to the Lions. Well, the Lions here again are going to be looking at one of these elite players. And really out of the group of elite players, there's really only 2 left. There's Bijan Robinson and there's Broderick Jones. Now, the The Lions need offense. They need particularly wide receivers, but this is a weak wide receiver class, and I don't think they're going to go wide receiver here at number 6. I Again, with the Lions, I'm like, okay, they've got some good running backs, but who is their running back? They've drafted a lot of offensive linemen recently, and they have a pretty good one up there right now. In his name escapes me, but he was a first round pick a few years ago. So if they take the offensive lineman, it would make a lot of sense. He's a left tackle. You can plug him in. You continue to protect Jared Goff, who had a great season. Jared Goff, by the way, had a better season last year than Rich Gannon did during his 2002 MVP year, which was a complete joke. Rich Gannon was never the MVP of this league. It was a complete joke. So will they consider Anthony Richardson? I don't think so. I think Jared Goff is playing great for them. And I think Jared Goff can make any throw that you need an NFL quarterback to make. He can make it accurately, and he can make it under pressure. So I don't see that being an issue. I think the way they go here is actually to take the running back, Bijan Robinson, who is one of those elite players. He's a guaranteed hit. It's the running game is going to help their offense even more. Now, do they need defense? Yes. Do they need wide receivers? Yes. But the bottom line is this guy's going to help make them a better football team. Now it gets interesting because the Raiders are up on the board, and I don't really know who's making the picks here. Is it Josh McDaniel, the new head coach? Is it the vague GM that they have? Is it owner Mark Davis? I don't know, but I do know this. The Raiders have a tendency to go for big athletic traits. And although it would make a lot of sense for them to take the best tackle in this draft because their offensive line is weak, Paris Johnson Jr. would be a great pick. He's on the verge of being an elite player. So is Anthony Richardson. I think although they already got Jimmy Garoppolo for the next few years, I don't think you can afford to pass on a talent like Anthony Richardson. If you do, and you're the Raiders, you're going to look really stupid in a couple of years. So I go for Anthony Richardson as the quarterback. He may sit for a year. He may sit for 2 years. Don't forget, Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years before he started for the Packers. So these things happen. That leaves the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Falcons could use some offensive line help, but the bottom line is they also need pass rush. They also need other things. I think Tyree Wilson, despite the red flags about his injuries, is going to go right there to the Falcons because he's a good player. He's a player some people had projected top 5. I don't see any reason why the Falcons don't take him. They probably wanted Bijan Robinson to complete their triumvirate of wide receiver, tight end, and running back, but they don't get that. So much for the triplets. They still have some issues with quarterback there. The happiest people in the entire draft now are the Chicago Bears. They traded out of 1, they got down to 9. They probably have a list of players they'd be willing to take here. They need defense, they need pass rush, they also need offensive line protection. I think Paris Johnson Jr. goes at number 10 right here. Now, the other place he could go is he could go number 3. He could go to the Falcons at number 3. He could even go number 2 to the Texans. We don't know, but he doesn't get out of the top 10. All right. The Philadelphia Eagles are up, and they've lost a couple safeties. They could use some fresh legs on their defense, and they have 2 first-round picks. They have number 10, and they're also down at number 30. This is the place that they can afford to take a risk on a character guy like Jalen Carter. Now, I don't like this pick. I wouldn't take Jalen Carter with a first-round pick because of all of his character issues. But the Eagles may be willing to say, we're going to take a chance, because at least what it does is it shows their fan base that were in the Super Bowl last year. They should have won it or had a chance to win it if the referees had not deliberately handed the game to the Kansas City Chiefs for no reason other than somebody in NFL headquarters in New York told them we want Patrick Mahomes to win another Super Bowl. The Eagles would be world champions right now with 2 first-round picks and a chance to really rebuild their roster. Carter would replace Fletcher Cox. He has so many character red flags. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, but I think the Eagles can afford to. So I think he barely doesn't get out, just catches the edge of the top 10. Now, On to the Tennessee Titans. They are a difficult team to figure out. The Titans need a quarterback. They need somebody better than Ryan Tannehill. The Texans need a quarterback. They need somebody better than Ryan Tannehill. The Packers could take a quarterback at 13, and the Washington Redskins at number 16 could use a quarterback. I think this could be a landing spot for Hendon Hooker, but I really don't know. I think there's going to be a team that's going to say we're not waiting for the end of the first round. We like Hendon Hooker. We think he has all the intangibles, everything we need. And we're willing to wait for him to recover from his knee injury and play him later this year and him be our starting quarterback next year. I just don't think that that is the destination. Tennessee is that destination. They need a lot of help here in Tennessee at a lot of different positions. But I do think that it wouldn't kill them to have another value player. Now, the value in the draft right now that we're out of the elite players is at defensive back. And I think that they go ahead and take Christian Gonzalez, the defensive back from Oregon, which leaves the Houston Texans. Now, the Texans went defense at number 2 with Will Anderson. They could go offense here. The only thing you're not going to look for is an edge, because they just took an edge. So who's the best player on the board? Who's the guy that they're likely to go for? They could go for the quarterback, or they could go for one of the other defensive players. And I do think in this case, again, they're going to go defense with the first pick, offense with the second pick at number 12. I think the guy they come up and take is Darnell Wright. Some people have him as the best defensive or offensive tackle in this draft, better than Paris Johnson Jr., but he goes right there at number 12. That leaves the Packers at 13. Now, what are the Packers going to do? Yeah, they could draft a quarterback. I don't think they're going to undermine Jordan Love by doing that. I think they like a lot of what they've seen in Jordan Love. And the question here is, do they pick for need? Do they trade out of this pick? And I'm not allowing any trades in this first round. Or do they just take the best player for their defense? And I think they take the best player for their defense. I think that's Myles Murphy, the edge from Clemson, and they help him attack the quarterback. Now, some people will think, oh, that really disappointed the New England Patriots, but it doesn't. The Patriots draft certain types of players with high football character. The highest football character guy on this board is a guy that a lot of people don't like. Rob Staten, one of my favorite guys, doesn't like this player, but I love the guy. He's got athletic ability off the charts. His football character is impeccable. I think Nolan Smith goes to New England. Even though they could use wide receivers, I think he goes right there. Now the Jets are up. The Jets have traded for Aaron Rodgers. And the question is, do they do something to support Aaron Rodgers here? Do they get him a wide receiver? Do they get him an offensive lineman? They're going to do something to help him. If Bijan Robinson slips past the Falcons and the Lions, Bijan Robinson doesn't go anywhere past this. They have a good running back they drafted last year. They have a good receiver in, I think it's Garrett Wilson is his name. But one of the things they really don't have there is a top-of-the-line tight end, and a real solid tight end player. Michael Mayer is going to go there to the Jets at 15. So that's an extra weapon for Aaron Rodgers, a guy that he will lean on and utilize. I think it's a great pick for the Jets, and I absolutely think that they do that if Mayer reaches 15. Now we come to the Washington Redskins, aka Commanders. No, I don't buy anything about the Commanders. They're the Redskins to me forever. It's not a racist term, by the way. It's an honorific. They were named that in honor. The Redskins, when the people said the Redskins are coming, it was terrifying. They were warriors. They were fierce. That's why they were named the Redskins. There's absolutely nothing racist about it. Now, they could go for receiver. They could go for defense. They could go a lot of ways. But look, they've been chasing the quarterback position ever since 2019 when they passed on Justin Herbert, 2020, when they passed on Justin Herbert for Chase Young. And Chase Young has been a bust. Darrell Taylor had more sacks last year for the Seahawks than Chase Young has had in his entire 3-year career for the Redskins. They're going to go offense. I think they go quarterback. I think they go for Hendon Hooker. I don't think Hooker gets past this. Even though he's older, 24, 25, They could let him sit for a year, physically recover, and then he becomes their starter in 2024. Now is where the draft starts to get vague for me. I really don't know, you know, really don't know where teams are going to go, what their values are. If you look at the Steelers typically draft very, very solid guys. They could use a wide receiver, they could use a center, they could use an offensive tackle, they could use an edge. Where's the value? Well, the wide receivers are simply not that great in this draft. And I think taking one at 17 would be overrating one of the wide receivers. Therefore, I think they go offense to help protect their new quarterback. And I think they just take Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. Now we come back to the Lions. Well, the Lions need defense, but the Lions went offense the first time around with Bijan Robinson. Now do they come back and go to defense? Well, the Lions have a lot of picks. They have this pick. They have 48. They have 2 second rounders, 48 and 55. They have 81 in the third. They got a couple of fourths. 152, I think, is in the fourth or fifth. And 183 and 194. They have plenty of chances to go defense after this and improve their defense. Their biggest need, because they just had 2 wide receivers suspended, is a wide receiver. The question is, do they go with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is generally regarded as the top receiver in this draft, or do they go with Jordan Addison from USC, who's a very explosive player? I think they go with the bigger, more durable player. They do play on that hard turf in Detroit, and they're going to play a lot of games outside. They want a guy who's used to that cold weather. Jordan Addison, having played at USC, is not used to playing in cold weather. And Jackson Smith-Njigba, the people rate him lower because he didn't run a very fast 40. I think he ran a 4.5 40, and most teams, the Seahawks have never touched a receiver who wasn't in the 4.4s in the 40. That's a downgrade on him for a lot of teams, but there's no question that his pattern running is incredible. It's already at a pro level. His hands are great. He may not be an explosive downfield receiver, but remember, Jerry Rice, the greatest receiver of all time, ran a 4.7 40 at his pro day, his combine. So they're going to go, I think, with the Ohio State wide receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba. It's offense for them. But again, it's a weak wide receiver class. They get their pick of the litter. They take the top guy on the board. Now we come to Tampa Bay. And what does Tampa Bay need? Well, Tampa Bay needs all kinds of things, but you can always use a pass rusher. I think a guy who's a solid character guy, he's a 43 pass rusher, is Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. And I think he goes there. Now, the Seahawks are on the board at 20. What do we do here? We've got a lot of guys left. We're not going to take an offensive tackle. We're not going to take a safety. We're overloaded at safety. Jordan Addison could be a good option for us, but we already have a miniature little guy named D. Eskridge, who's terrible. That can't take a hit. I don't think we do that. We could surprise. I mean, I love Joey Porter. I love Kaylee Ringo. I love a lot of these guys in this draft, but the Seahawks, after having taken a quarterback in the first round, they could even go tight end. They could go tight end. Tight end's not a need. I think they go defense. I think they go defensive line. The question is who? Now, out of the defensive tackles, you've got Brian Bresee, you've got Kalijah Kancey. Kancey is very tempting. Even though the Seahawks don't have a nose tackle, I don't think they view that as a very important need. I think there's guys they're going to pick up in post-draft free agency. Kancey's 6'1", 281. He's a 34 defensive end. There's some rumors they might be shifting back to a 43 from a 34. They've always played hybrid sets. What they have now done is that the 34 is their primary set. Kancey is great. He's long-armed. He's 281. He'd make a great inside player. But the real talent in this draft that I think fits the Seahawks' tendencies the best, and Rob Staten has talked about that, is Will McDonald's 6'3", 240. His athletic testing is phenomenal. He's got these long arms. He's explosive. He attacks downfield. I think he's the guy that they look for and they take if they can't trade out of 20. I think he absolutely goes first round even if the Seahawks don't take him at 20. So now we're on with the Chargers. And, again, the Chargers, they need wide receivers, they need an offensive tackle, they need cornerback, they need edge. I think they'd love to jump up here and take Jordan Addison, the wide receiver, or take one of the tight ends. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they have to go where the talent in this draft is, and the talent is going to be at corner. Now, one other thing, even though I think Broderick Jones is a better player, an offensive tackle is a need for the Steelers, there's a real chance that this guy, Joey Porter Jr., goes to the Steelers. That may very well happen. I think instead, if he doesn't go there, he goes here to the Chargers. They've got to improve their defensive backfield. The Ravens, they're trying to keep Lamar Jackson there, and that means either offensive line or wide receiver. They also have a great history of defensive players. So I still think what they're going to do here is they're probably going to jump. They're going to take a risk. They're going to go with Jordan Addison at wide receiver to help get them more explosive plays, because they may be forced to trade Lamar yet. They may be forced to do that at some point, and they may do it on draft day. All right, 23, we're down to the Vikings. The Vikings have a lot of needs, I think mostly defensive. Let me take a quick look at what they say. Cornerback, wide receiver, safety. Yeah, defensive backfield is always a problem for them. Do they take Brian Branch as safety? No, I don't think he's a first-round pick. Do they take Deonte Banks? No, I don't think so. I think they're smart. I think they take Kelly Ringo, who from Georgia, who I absolutely love. The guy's a ball hawk. When the ball's around him, he picks it off. He makes plays on the ball. The Vikings don't have anybody like that, so I think they go that way. Now we come to the Jaguars, and the Jaguars have some, again, corner, safety, tight end. I think this is where they do something to help Trevor Lawrence. They could go for offensive line here to help protect him, but I think in a very big tight end class, the best pick for them is Dalton Kincaid, the tight end from Utah. A lot of guys have him as the number 2 all-around tight end in this draft. He does everything. Good target for Trevor Lawrence, helps them over the middle. I'm taking Dalton Kincaid if I'm them. Now, the next 2 picks are really interesting because the Giants and the Cowboys would both like to do something at the running back position. And the best running back left on the board right now is, they got him way down in the second round. Where is he? Where is our running back? Am I missing him? USC guy. Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, they got Saquon Barkley. Why do the Giants need Jahmyr Gibbs? Well, 2 reasons. One, I think they need to move on from Barkley and his contract. Number 2, it would keep the Cowboys from getting him. So I really think that they could take a cornerback here. But if you look at the Giants team needs, it's running back here. It's cornerback, running back, offensive guard. Peter Skoronski is an offensive tackle that most people think is going to be an offensive guard in the NFL. They could take the basic building block pick, or they could go for it and take Jahmyr Gibbs. The question is Jahmyr Gibbs at 5'9", 199 the right guy? Or do you take one of the better corners like Deonte Banks? Which of these things do you do? Now, again, with a first-round pick, you want to make an impact. I don't think taking a guard really makes an impact. I think that they do take the risk, go for the explosive guy, and the second running back comes off the board in Jahmyr Gibbs. That forces the Cowboys, who have other needs. The biggest thing that happened with the Cowboys last year is that although offensive guard is a need, wide receiver, the running back is a tertiary need for them. So I don't think they're that upset that Jahmyr Gibbs is off the board, but they couldn't get a pass rush in the second half of the season. They just were shut down. They had a lot of issues. They had a lot of problems. I think they go for a guy who can help them attack the quarterback. You can go look at the edges and say, well, there's Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. There's B.J. Ojulari. The guy I like and that I would like the Seahawks to take is Ade Tomiwa Adebawar, I think he's a bigger risk, but I think that you line him up opposite what's his name, the other linebacker they have. I think you got two guys that can attack from the edge. I think that's what the Cowboys do. Now, the Bills' needs. Well, the Bills have actually more needs than you would expect. And if you look at them, it's offensive guard, cornerback, linebacker, safety, wide receiver. I think they'd like to take an explosive offensive player. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, if he'd lasted that long, or even Bijan Robinson, if he'd lasted that long, would have been a good choice for them. I think this is where Skoronski goes. He's an offensive tackle. They can turn him into a guard, and he may be able to play right tackle at some point. A basic building block piece for the Bills to keep them in contention. Now the Bengals. I really like the Bengals roster. Cornerback, edge, offensive tackle, offensive guard, tight end. All these things would help. I do think you need to get somebody to definitely help out Joe Burrow there. Skoronski would have been a good pick for them because they've got offensive line issues, but I do think there's some offensive line players down further in the draft. I suspect at this point that they go for an edge type. Isaiah Foskey. Let's see where Isaiah Foskey is rated. I want to see who Rob Staten has at edge. He's got Will Anderson and Will McDonald as first rounders. I've taken that. He's got Derek Hall, Nolan Smith, and BJ Ojolari as second round picks. So defensive ends are Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy, Louis Van Ness, Tui Tuipolo as a second round pick. So you're talking about guys that could be available there. I don't think he doesn't like Foskey very much. Where does he actually have Foskey? He's got him way down in the fourth round. So I tend to think he's pretty smart. So I'm not going to go for Foskey here, even though it's tempting for the Bengals. I think you want to look for value. I think Kalijah Kancey is a better player, a better value. So I'm going to have him go right there to the Bengals. So he 29. The Saints are in best athlete available mode. They really could use a quarterback, defensive tackle, edge, wide receiver, tight end. These are all considerations here. I think Brian Bresee, the defensive tackle from Clemson, probably goes here. He slid far enough. Now we come back to the Eagles at number 30. They took a big risk. Took a big risk on Jalen Carter at number 10. Now they could go. They've gone defense. They could go offense. I think they're going to take a guy who's a lot more solid, who's a good, strong character guy that they can count on. And again, let's go over and check real quick on the defensive backs. AJ Turner. Okay. As I look at this, I think that they go defensive back. They lost two safeties, but safety corner, it's kind of disputable which one you go through. I think they take Deonte Banks, a solid citizen, a guy who helps their defense. And now we're on to the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champions, even though they didn't really win a Super Bowl. It was handed to them by the refs. I think they take a risk here. I think they go for the wide receiver. I think they want to always have explosive downfield players. The other possibility is they could go for a tight end to move in behind Jason Kelce. Even though Kelce's never injured, he's been in the league for 7 or 8 years. It would not kill them to take a tight end here. My favorite tight end in this draft is actually Darnell Washington of Georgia. So that's got to be very tempting. You would have more two wide receiver sets. The guy is just off the scale athletically. 6'7", 265 pounds, ran an incredible 40. He's a terrific blocker. I like him as a prospect better than I like Zay Flowers, who I think is the next guy in line as a wide receiver. And even though he's super explosive, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to say it's Darnell Washington. I know it's going to be an offensive player. I know it's going to be a wide receiver of some type. So here's my final wild ass guess mock draft. for 2023. Bryce Young to the Panthers, Will Anderson to the Texans, Devon Witherspoon to the Cardinals. The more I look at that now, the less I feel about it. But I do hear that that's a possibility. Will Levis absolutely goes to the Colts at number 4 if he's there. CJ Stroud to the Seahawks. Please, God, don't let these guys be stupid enough to pass on CJ Stroud. Bijan Robinson to the Lions. Anthony Richardson to the Raiders. Tyree Wilson to the Falcons. Paris Johnson Jr., the offensive tackle, to the Bears. Jalen Carter should drop, as far as I'm concerned, all the way out of the first round. I wouldn't touch him with a first-round pick, but the Eagles can afford to, so they take a chance on him at number 10. I suspect that they would rather trade out of here down into this range and take him there, but hey. Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback, goes to Tennessee because they need a solid person there. Darnell Wright, some people think is the best offensive tackle in this draft, goes to the Texans, so they go defense, offense. Miles Murphy, the pass rusher edge guy, goes to the Packers. Nolan Smith, the edge, goes to the Patriots. Solid Patriot citizen there. Michael Mayer, the tight end, to help. It's either going to be offensive line, running back, or tight end for the Jets. I think Michael Mayer is a great addition to the Jets. He's sort of a pocket Rob Gronkowski. Hendon Hooker to Tennessee. I'm adamant about this. I don't see them passing him up. I don't think Hooker gets past 16. Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle for Georgia. I think if I could do it over again, I'd probably switch to Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback from Penn State. But a lot of times when there's ties to certain players and stuff, that it just, it doesn't happen. Even though it seems like an obvious relationship thing, it doesn't happen. I think the Lions come back with a wide receiver. I have them taking Jackson Smith-Njigba at 18 to help their wide receiver situation. Lucas Van Ness, the edge, goes to Tampa Bay. The Seahawks come back with Will McDonald, the guy they'd rather have than Lucas Van Ness as a pass rusher. Joey Porter then goes to Penn State. Goes to the Chargers. Jordan Addison, the wide receiver, to the Ravens, because they've got to try to talk Lamar into staying. Kaylee Ringo, I think, is vastly underrated. Defensive back, goes to the Vikings. It's going to be a defensive back at that pick, I'm pretty sure. I got Dalton Kincaid, the second tight end in the draft, who some people think is the first tight end of the draft, going to the Jaguars. Great piece there for Trevor Lawrence. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back from Alabama, goes to the Giants. I think they add other players at other spots later on, but I think they do this because they want to have a reason to get rid of Saquon Barkley. The Cowboys probably wanted him, but they go with Adebawore, the pass rusher, to help their pass rushing situation, which really faded in the second half. I think the Bills go for the base building block, Peter Skoronski, who's going to be an offensive guard, offensive tackle for them. The Bengals say thank you very much and take Kalijah Kancey, defensive tackle from Pittsburgh, defensive tackle end. Brian Bresee goes to the Saints. Why do the Saints do that? The Saints do that. They've just got a standard set of picks because they're an unknown quantity in terms of their new coaching staff and GM. And I think they just do the basic thing and take Brian Bresee. He's rated there. He's a safe pick. After having taken a big risk on Jalen Carter at number 10, the Eagles come back at number 30 and take Deonte Banks, the solid citizen cornerback from Maryland. And then the Chiefs are either going to go wide receiver or tight end here. I just think that they can't pass up the athleticism and upside of Darnell Washington. I think a year behind Travis Kelce, they could even move on from Kelce in a year or two, and Darnell Washington could do most everything for them that Kelce does. And he can learn from the best. He can learn from the Hall of Famer. So that's the way I see it. That's my pick. If the Seahawks come away with CJ, I'll be okay with Anthony Richardson, but I'll be so much happier if the Seahawks get CJ Stroud. If they come away with CJ Stroud and Will McDonald, I'm going to be over the moon tomorrow night. If they don't come away with the quarterback at the number 5 pick, I'm going to be in the dumps and ripping Pete Carroll and John Schneider, especially if they have two of them there. If Stroud and Richardson both make it, as some scenarios suggest, to number 5, it'll be a disaster. But if they came away with Stroud and McDonald and still have 37, 52 in the second round, 83 in the third, 123 in the fourth, 151 and 154 in the fifth, wow, I would be happy because we would be on our way to having another great draft. We've secured our quarterback for the future, and things would be looking up again in Seattle, even though Pete Carroll is still the head coach. All right, that's what I think. That's my wildest guess. Wild ass guess, my WAG draft. Thank you guys for being here. I certainly appreciate you all watching this, all two of you who probably will see this. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And let's see what happens tomorrow night. I may come back with a rant. All right, I got to go get ready for my live stream with Jen at 10 a.m. in a couple hours. Everybody have a good Wednesday, and I'll see you soon. Bye.